Oddworld Abe's Oddysee, better known simply as Abe's Oddysee, is a game in which you control a bumbling alien who tries to save his people, and with the emphasis there being on the word try. Widely praised on release for the quality of its gameplay, art direction and writing, the latter of which was so good it literally saved somebody's life.
Okay, so whose life did this video game save?
Well, the video game Oddworld Abe's Oddysee saved the life of a man called Alfred Gamble, and for this one we need to refer to a story told by Lorne Lanning, the co-creator of the Oddworld series and the voice of Abe himself. So he's the guy who voices Abe, and he's like a really interesting figure in the gaming industry, and all of his interviews are fantastic. I highly recommend people go look up interviews with him, even if you have no interest in Abe's Oddysee or the Oddworld series, just to hear him talk about games, because the way he approaches video games is just so refreshing. For example, there's a quote from him about the development of Abe's Oddysee, where he was being pressured to put a gun in the game. They kept telling him, look, you need to put a gun in the game. Like, no one's going to play the game if Abe doesn't have a gun. And Lanning got really annoyed about this and just looked the person dead in the eye and said, look, if you give Abe a gun, that's the only way people are going to think to solve their problems. And the solution he came up with, partly to spite that person, was the possession mechanic. You know, where Abe does his chant and takes over an enemy? You can take control of an enemy that has a gun, but to solve the puzzle, you have to then explode that enemy so you no longer have it.
Oh yeah, I know, that's quite dark, isn't it? You could like take control of an enemy and then basically kill yourself.
Yeah, well, think about how many people die in Abe's Oddysee as it is. It's ridiculous. Like, that game is basically a dark comedy, which is how it ended up saving the life of Mr. Alfred Gamble, which we'll get to in a moment, but first we have to establish why Alfred Gamble needed his life to be saved.
Okay, so what happened with Alfred Gamble?
Well, according to Lorne Lanning, about a year or so after the game Abe's Oddysee released, and they received a letter from Gamble, a 6-page handwritten letter, basically detailing his entire life story, in which he explained, I was a World War II veteran, I drove trucks for a bit, and then my wife died from a long and debilitating illness, which understandably left me feeling listless, depressed and angry at the world. And he describes how he fell deeper and deeper into this fit of depression, to the point where he got his old service revolver out, looked at it and went, I am going to shoot myself in the head. And the letter continues that he got increasingly frustrated with the fact he couldn't, quite literally, pull the trigger.
So is there any theories of why he didn't do it?
Well, Gamble himself noted in his letter that he thought long and hard to himself, why can't I do it? I've got nothing left to live for. My wife is dead. I'm angry. I'm depressed. My grandkids don't visit anymore. My children don't talk to me. The fuck else have I got? And he thought, hang on, I've got a couple £100 just left in my bank account. And if I die, that'll go to the taxman, and fuck the taxman. So what I'm going to do is I am going to spend literally every penny I have on the most frivolous bullshit imaginable so that the taxman doesn't get it when I blow my head off. And it's quite fitting that this story is related in a tangential way to Oddworld Abe's Oddysee, which, as we mentioned, has some darkly humorous aspects to it. On the surface, some of the stuff you do in that game is very dark, accidentally getting your own enslaved brethren killed by wild animals, but you can't help but laugh at it sometimes because it's so absurd. And in the same vein, Gamble noted in the letter he sent to Oddworld Studios, despite seemingly having nothing to live for, I still couldn't do it because there was just that one little bit of money I had left I needed to spend so the taxman couldn't get it. And what Gamble, who was 72 years old at the time, thought to himself is, what is the most frivolous, pointless bullshit I could spend my last few £100s on? And he walked into a shop and saw a PlayStation.
Well, I'm assuming that console came with a copy of Abe's Oddysee.
Actually, it didn't, no. The story goes that Gamble had to choose the game that came with it, and because he had no fucking clue what a PlayStation even was, he just looked at the titles, saw the cover of Abe's Oddysee, and reportedly said to himself, that's me. That's how I feel right now. And you're just Abe's super downtrodden, that face. He looked at that and went, that's me. You can just see he's just that defeated, trudging look. It's he looked at the cover of Abe's Oddysee, saw it and went, that's me, that's the game I'm going to buy, and took it home. And according to his letter, something he never expected to happen happened when he first booted it up.
So, Karl, what happened?
He laughed for the first time in years. And just in that moment thought to himself, it's not all bad. He genuinely thought he'd never smile or be happy again, and that happening to him made him realise, oh, I can smile again, I can laugh again. There are things out there for me still to do and enjoy. And he just sat there and played as much of the game as he could. Like, obviously, a 72-year-old man, he'd never played a game before, and he just kept throwing himself against the brick wall of the video game, laughing the entire time at like the absurdity of the story and the character of Abe.
But what happened, he said, is I started playing the game, and I couldn't stop, and I started identifying with Abe, and I had nothing really going for me, but if I just kept going, I could do it. And you built it in so that no matter what, I could be shitty at gaming, but if I tried long enough, I would eventually succeed.
And it is one of those tropey things that nobody ever really wants to hear. And I'm sure that if someone told Gamble laughter is the best medicine after his wife passed away, he probably would have swung for them. Or, given how the rest of his story went, pulled his old service revolver out and shot them. It reminds me a little bit of that moment in, I think it's Men in Black 2 or 3, maybe the first one, where Agent K is just looking at the satellite feed of his wife. And Agent J sees it and just delivers the old platitude of, well, it's better to have loved than lost. And just he looks him dead in the eye and goes, try it.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, it's better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all. Try it.
And you can just feel his anger in that moment of you don't fucking have a clue what I've been through. Don't drop that shit on me. But in the same vein, it is true, but
not at the moment it's happened. It's too soon.
It's like the platitude of time heals all wounds. Yes, it's true. After a couple of years, you might get over a very raw emotional moment, but no one wants to hear that 5 minutes after it happens.
No, too soon.
People just need that moment to just process their grief. And for Alfred Gamble, that process took many, many years. And just upon playing Abe's Oddysee, he realised, wow, there is more to live for. And he felt compelled to write a letter to Oddworld Studios, thanking them for literally saving his life. And according to Lorne Lanning, there wasn't a single person in the office who did not have tears in their eyes when he read that letter out loud.
Aww.
And it is one of Lorne Lanning's favourite stories to tell, and he tells it so well that other people from the studio refuse to tell it because he tells it so well.
Aww. That's sweet.
And also as well, it's too emotional for them to save. Because obviously they just had a letter from this adorable old man, your game saved my life. And Nisha, are you ready for things to get more adorable?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
Well, according to that letter, after playing the game, laughing for the first time in years and realising that life wasn't all bad, Gamble sought to reconnect with his family again. He just thought to himself, why am I not talking to my grandkids? Why am I being just a grumpy sourpuss who sits in my house all day doing nothing? There's so much more life to live. So he reconnected with his family and started hosting Abe tea parties where he'd invite his grandkids over to play Abe's Oddysee with him.
Oh my god.
And he'd have tea and cakes and play Abe's Oddysee with them. And then he started his own Abe's Oddysee merch collection. Some of which he made himself because there wasn't much official merchandise for the game or the series.
Oh my god.
So what he would do is he would go to printing shops and print off low-res JPEGs of his favourite characters and then put them on a shelf alongside stuff the studio sent him. And then he got an Abe tattoo as well that he would gladly show to people and explain why he got it at 70 odd years old.
My god, I wasn't expecting all this.
And as you might imagine, folks at home, everybody at Oddworld Studios fucking loves this story and adored Alfred Gamble, who unfortunately passed away a few years later. And they are deeply humbled by the fact that their game gave this old man a literal new lease on life. And as mentioned, Lorne Lanning loves telling this story, even though you can see even years later when he tells it, he still gets emotional thinking about it. Because as mentioned, Alfred Gamble passed away, and Oddworld Studios, they fucking love this guy. They even put a character in one of the games called Alf as a nod to him. And they had him on their website as fan of the year or something like that. And they have a memorial to him on their website that they maintain. And they announced his death on the forums. And there was this huge outpouring of support that made its way back to his family, who were aware of his love of the game and were oh, thank you, the game. It saved his life. It gave me back my dad for the last couple of years of his life. I cannot thank you. And it was the power of video games.
So good.
I'm now just thinking though, would that have happened if instead of like Oddworld Abe's Oddysee. Like Gamble picked up a copy of like Twisted Metal or something like that.
I remember my first one was Lemmings.
Lemmings. Oh man. Well, to be fair though, I don't think that'd have been the best game for a severely depressed old man to play.
No.
A game in which, well, then again, how many fucking people throw themselves into just like mortal danger in Abe's Oddysee at your command? Like, what a great story. Like, fucking, what a ledge. And shout outs to Oddworld Studios for making a game that was so good, it saved a guy's life.